that the price really doesn't matter if you're running a nuclear power plant. The actual price of uranium doesn't really matter. You have to have it, so there's a lot of what we call price inelasticity. So to summarize, it's on the demand side, it's very robust and it's very quantifiable. So if you look out from now to 2050, you can quantify it quite precisely. However, on the supply side, it's a different question.
Hello everyone and welcome to another edition of Triangle Investor Interviews. I'm your host Lucian Valkovic, and before I announce my guest, just a reminder of a disclaimer. This interview and all my interviews are not a recommendation to buy, sell shares, products or services. Always do your due diligence and consult with your financial advisor. And my guest today is Crispin Clarke, advisor to Curzon Uranium and Uranium.io. Thank you very much for joining me, Crispin. Welcome.
Thank you very much for the invite.
I really look forward to talk with you, given your extensive experience and expertise in the nuclear sector, particularly with the uranium market. It will be great to start with your perspective on the current dynamics of the uranium market and your views on both spot and term market. But let's start with spot. Uranium market is showing signs of recovery from recent lows. What key factors do you see driving this upward momentum, and how sustainable do you believe this trend is in the near term?
Yeah, thanks, Luca. Yeah, good question. And I think to take a step back and kind of answer a question like that, you really got to look at the overall supply demand. Obviously, any commodity is based on supply and demand. And I think if you there's lots of reading out there that you can read, but my quick 2 cents on what I see happening is clearly on the demand side, there's very robust demand for uranium. You just look at the recent news about Sizewell C in the UK, look at the executive orders in the US and other countries like Belgium restarting or planning new reactors. Clearly, there's a lot of demand out there. So if you look at that and you think about briefly like the fuel supply for those reactors, and it's important to understand a couple of points. Number one is there's only one fuel source for nuclear reactors, and that's uranium. And number two is that the price really doesn't matter if you're running a nuclear power plant. The actual price of uranium doesn't really matter. You have to have it, so there's a lot of what we call price inelasticity. So to summarize, it's on the demand side, it's very robust and it's very quantifiable. So if you look out from now to 2050, you can quantify it quite precisely. However, on the supply side, it's a different question. So if you look at what's happening in supply, the supply is we're not at the incentive prices to take uranium out of the ground, and we're very reliant on a few major projects coming into play over the next 5 years to get even close to to supply what the demand is. So you've got this big imbalance, which is resulting in higher prices. Briefly on the spot market versus the term market. The way we see it is really just one kind of continuous market. The spot market really responds to more kind of recent news, whereas the term market, where the major buyers are, that's the fuel buyers, they deal in the term market. What's important to them is the long-term security of acquiring their uranium to go into the fuel cycle. So you've got this kind of continuous market. What we see specifically on the spot market this year is utilities actually coming in to the spot market and an increase in the volumes of transactions. So I believe the recent lows were in place, and now we're in a position, very constructive position for higher prices on spot uranium.
Great overview. Just one additional question. In the term uranium market, how are current contract negotiations reflecting buyer and seller sentiment, and what are you hearing and seeing about the activities?
Yeah, so what we hear two things in the spot market. Number one is that utilities are active in the spot market on their own or through what we call a carry trade. So this kind of continuous market, the spot market, kind of anything up to 3 months, and then the term market going out a number of years. Given the current prices of spot and where the term market is, the market is back to where kind of how it normally is. It's a contango market, so the prices are lower today than they are in the future. What that allows is for utilities or carry traders to buy in the spot market today, put it carry it on their books, and then do an agreement to sell it in the future. So given so it's obviously dependent on the cost of storage and the cost of money, but right now that is definitely coming back into play. So we see a lot of carry trades, we see utilities coming in to execute on those carry trades. So yeah, very robust, active market so far in 2025.
Excellent. And the way how investors can play the uranium physical market is via XU308, tokenized uranium. We will talk that as well. My first question about that, what initially drew you to the XU308 uranium.io project as an advisor? And was it the dynamics of the uranium market, the potential of blockchain to reshape commodity trading, or something else?
Yeah, so so a little bit of history. So bear with me. I started working with Curzon Uranium in 2021. So if we kind of cast our minds back to what was happening then, clearly the nuclear renaissance, the recent nuclear renaissance was in its early stages then. But what we saw is the Sprott Physical Uranium Trust came to market in 2021 and attracted a lot of institutional interest. So what we saw back with working with Curzon is an opportunity around looking at, well, how do retail investors invest into this commodity? So that's when we started looking at how do you use a token or tokenization of blockchain to provide a solution for retail investors. A little bit of a bumpy road, very briefly, kind of what happened there is, I mean, what was clear to us, we wanted a fully regulated environment. If we want to have a token or an investment instrument that retail people would buy, they had to be able to trust the counterparties and the partners involved. Very important. Frankly, back in 2021, I did a lot of studying around. I'm kind of in the center of blockchain and DLT in Switzerland here. And quite honestly, I couldn't find the right partners to build such a product, so a tokenized product. So we kind of took a little bit of a different spin then, and we announced an AMC that with a local asset manager called Zuri Invest to look at how do you address pretty much in the institutional market. How do you overcome things like the typical problem with Sprott or Yellowcake when they trade to a discount to NAV? So a structured product to really overcome those issues. So the token at that point kind of took a bit of a back seat. Early 2022, I met with Arthur Brightman at the Tezos Foundation or Trilitech, and we kind of had a meeting of the minds with Arthur. He'd been thinking about the same thing. I put a lot of work into how do we do this as well. In fact, I'd actually signed a letter of intent with one of the Swiss crypto banks to build a token in early 2022. But with Russia invading Ukraine, that Swiss bank kind of reorganized and that project was put on hold. Anyway, so kind of a meeting of the minds with the Tezos Foundation in 2022. And then we kind of started working on, well, how do we do this, right? What partners? So, Tezos and other partners involved. Fortunately, later that year was the start of the crypto winter with FTX going bust. So kind of that was November 2022. Project basically went on hold for a year. until we came out of that crypto winter. 2023, early 2024, we really kind of got back to like, how do we do this? We managed to find some great partners, say in Trilitech and the Tezos Foundation. We work closely, with Archax as a regulated custodian, regulated exchange, and a regulated tokenizer. So really, it was kind of early 2024 that we really the plans really came together and we created the project. And we launched our first project in December 2024 on uranium.io, so a DEX, so allowing retail investors to come in and literally buy $1 worth of uranium. So yeah, kind of a very brief overview. Tried to keep it brief, Lucio, but that's kind of the genesis of the project.
Glad to hear that, Crispin. How was your experience been working with both Curzon and Uranium.io teams to bring this project to life? I mean, in your view, what are the most transformative innovations that Uranium.io brings to the table for nuclear energy sector and commodity investors?
Yeah, so I think there's a few, on working with the team, we managed to assemble a very strong team of people with commodities experience, obviously leaning on our partners at Curzon Uranium, leaning on Archax about the custodian. Trilitech have been providing a lot of resources, technical, marketing, legal resources. There's been a lot of work on the legal side to create the kind of very innovative way that we've from a legal perspective on the token. So yeah, it's been kind of it's been ups and downs, as I mentioned. To bring anything like this to market takes time, it takes perseverance, but we've worked hard through that. Really, there's three things, right? The current market in uranium, and I'm sure maybe a lot of your listeners know as well. The challenges are, firstly, the minimum trade size. So the type of like the high entry to go and buy physical uranium. So I'm not talking about investing in an ETF or like a structure like that. If you want to own physical, you've got to have, you've got to go and buy 100,000 pounds, $7 million at current prices. You've got to have your own storage account or one of the storage facilities around the world. Hard to set up, highly regulated environment as it should be, high cost. So there's that's a big barrier to entry. Secondly, pricing, as we know, right? Like there's no, the way that uranium gets bought and sold today is OTC through bilateral agreements. So if you're into the market and you're trying to invest, you don't really know where the pricing is. Obviously, you get the pricing via UXC and Trilitech. They price report, but you don't really know where the true price is. Lastly, settlement risk. When you go and buy, there's a physical settlement as part of that, and there's a cash settlement. So because those legs are independent, typically, there's counterparty risk as well. So it's a very tricky, and it's really only a few people can access the physical market today.
Yeah, there are a lot of moving parts here. Crispin, how do you see tokenized commodities like uranium fitting into the future of global commodities markets?
Yeah, I mean, if you look at where other markets, where they were in the 80s, how they were traded in the 80s and where they are today, if you look at the equities market or the foreign exchange market, they were OTC markets back in the 80s, but over the years they've become highly automated, highly liquid, electronic real-time markets. Unfortunately, the uranium trading and other commodities, not all commodities, but some other commodities, are still using the 80s technology. So my point is there's a lot of work. We don't have to go through all those intermediate steps on like how we're addressing uranium. We can go straight to the latest technology, which is tokenization, blockchain, etc., to really use the latest innovations to revolutionize the market. So what I see is we started with uranium and we're looking at other, we're focused on transition metals, as we call them. So we're looking at other metals such as lithium, cobalt, rare earth to go through a similar process now that we've built out the framework, or the technical framework and the legal framework to bring these to market. So what I see is, these commodity markets where they should be. So, they're highly liquid, there's derivative instruments, there's price discovery, there's instant settlement. That's what we can bring into these commodity markets.
Yeah, definitely. The framework is here, just like you said. So, variety of commodities can be covered here. But I would like to know: are there any other nuclear-related assets or process that you believe could benefit from this tokenization?
Yes, it's a good question, and my quick answer is yes. The fuel cycle for uranium is, U3O8. Then it's converted, then it's enriched. So there's many steps and then it's fabricated to go into a nuclear power plant. There's many steps involved. Where we're focused today is on the allocated U3O8. That's where we're focused. So I do believe down the road there will be an opportunity to use tokenization in some of those other markets. Another aspect, slightly different, but obviously one of the key values of blockchain is this idea of immutability, right? So what's happening in the nuclear space today is this bifurcation of the market. So there's kind of the Western market, and then there's the China-Russian market. So there's kind of a bifurcation. So in that process, what's happening is origin of material is becoming very important. A big kind of value proposition of blockchain is, as I said, that immutability. So I can see very strong use case to use blockchain technology, not necessarily tokenization, to address concerns or around the origin of material. So today we'll see in a market a utility wants to buy. They want to buy uranium. They're like, I only want to buy from a Western supplier. I don't want to buy from another jurisdiction. So kind of built into some sort of supply chain system, that blockchain could be used to build that sort of platform.
Yeah, Crispin, looking ahead, what's next for Uranium.io? I mean that from the technical side, from organizational side.
Yeah.
What are you personally most excited about as the platform evolves?
Yeah, so I mean we're just getting started, right? I mean we're out there, our TVL's going up very nicely on the DApp. Clearly, it's all about leveraging that position we're in the market today to build out, to get millions of users and billions of TVL. So that's about kind of two or three kind of core things. Firstly, it's about providing access to the investment. So we're very active in working with a number of centralized exchanges around the world. We have to meet investors where they want to transact, and as we know, many people use the centralized exchanges. So that's a big part of how we build. Second big part is really around education. There's a lot more information about the nuclear sector than there was even like 6 months ago. There's a lot of education. So, we're really focused on providing education, both on Uranium.io and other channels. So, investors can understand. If you want to invest into uranium, maybe some investors invest because it's cool technology, but most investors will invest because they believe in the value proposition, like why uranium. So as part of that, we need to educate people about nuclear power. Fortunately, as I said, there's a lot of information, even on the news these days around what's happening. but we need to build on that and kind of educate people.
Yeah.
The last, yeah, sorry, go ahead.
No, sorry.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
One last thing I was going to say is obviously that one of the key values of having it onto something like a blockchain or a tokenization is it becomes a building block for other assets on top. So where we see us doing a lot of work is around the hold, like you can hold uranium, and then whether it's on chain or off chain, you can do things like lending and borrowing and derivative instruments. Clearly a market that needs to be addressed. It doesn't exist in today's, they do exist, but they're not widely used, I should say, in today's market. But we see a big opportunity to provide those value-added instruments or hedging or derivative instruments on top of the spot.
Yeah, final thoughts. If we can walk through the process for my viewers how to buy physical uranium, and especially for institutions as well. How can they learn more and or gain access to XU308?
Yeah, very easy. We try to make it as easy as possible. So whether you're an institution or you're a retail investor, go to uranium.io. You can, if you have your own wallet, you can just attach it to the DApp. If you don't have a wallet infrastructure, you can just register with an email. It'll automatically create a wallet for you. Once you've done that, you need to fund the wallet with some USDC. Then you can go and buy uranium. It's as simple as that. If it takes you longer than 1 minute to buy uranium, then it's too long. It literally is as simple as that. Obviously, yeah. So you can do both, whether you're, if you're an institution or a retail investor, they're both there. Education is key. So you'd say we're adding more and more content on the DApp, so people can learn more. And as I mentioned earlier, very soon we will be available on centralized exchanges around the world.
Excellent. So long story short, you need 1 minute of your time and $5 in your wallet.
Well, you can do it with less than 5, actually. If you want to buy 1 ounce of uranium, you can use 5, but you can buy $1 if that's what you want to invest.
Excellent. Yeah. That was Crispin Clarke, advisor to Curzon Uranium and Uranium.io. Crispin, thank you very much for coming to my show. Learned a lot. I believe my viewers also learned a lot. So thank you very much.
Good. Thank you very much. A pleasure.